to another episode of the Future Included podcast. My name is Richard Cummins, and I'm interviewing Obum Ekeke today, where we're going to speak about his career journey, understand where he's at today, and give some background into his thoughts and opinions on the future of technology. Obum, welcome to the Future Included podcast. It's good to have you here today.
Thank you, Richard, for having me.
I've literally just dragged Obum off the floor at the Black Tech Fest here at Drumsheds in North London. This is unannounced, unrehearsed, but we're gonna
I should have avoided you.
we're gonna unpack all things on your amazing career journey today. So just give the audience just a bit of a background in terms of how you got into tech. You know, when you came to the UK and your background prior as well, before getting into Google and Deepmind.
Yeah, sure. My background is in computing. I studied computer science at university back home in Nigeria. Worked a little bit as a software engine developer in my early career days. Almost 19 years ago now, I believe, I came to the UK to study for my master's. And I was about finishing my master's when Google hired me. So I joined Google in Dublin. On the tech side, helped to build some of the advertising and publishing facing products you see today. Did that for about 3 years, I believe, and then moved back to London. And at the time, I was trying to figure out how to get more people like me into a place like Google. And I thought I would do that by moving my career towards education. So I literally left my technical role and moved into education at the time that Google was trying to go to Africa for the first time. So I joined Google to start their education work in Africa. My role expanded across emerging market countries beyond Africa. But 5 years ago, I got really fascinated about AI. I was reading a lot about AI. I imagined some of the challenges I faced myself growing up from a very humble background. And the more I read about AI, the more I saw the transformational impact AI could have in society and address some of the challenges I faced growing up. So the opportunity came for me to move to Google Deepmind to lead their education work, actually start their education work. So I moved to Google Deepmind and so that's where I'm.
So let's just pause there because you've just condensed probably about 10, 15 years in 2 minutes just then. And I know people watching this, they're going to be in the comment section talking about how did he even get to Google first off, right? I think you probably take this for granted because you've been at Google for quite some time. That entry point from studying, being in computer science, and you gaining your first employment role at Google Dublin, like how did that come about? How did you create that opportunity, or how did that opportunity come to you?
Honestly, at the time, I actually didn't know much about Google. As many other students, I was running up my master's, and I started applying for jobs on the internet. Put my CV together. As I said, I had some software development experience already.
And you were in Nigeria at the time?
Yeah, Nigeria. No, I had come to London.
You had come to London.
Do my master.
Okay, so you were here in London doing your master's already.
Yeah,
okay.
so just finishing up, I was working on my master's thesis, then started applying for jobs. I got called by Google and Microsoft and I think United Nations about the same time for interviews and then went through the process. It was when I then started telling people, oh, I got this call from Google for an interview, and they said, oh, geez, that's probably the best place to work in the world at the time. So that sparked a lot of my interest. I started researching and finding out more about what they do. And their mission actually resonated a lot with me. Long story short, I went through the series of interview. Then it was pretty hard. I think it's still hard to get in now, but
and what was your first role at that point?
My first role, I was doing my first role, what did they call it? Technical solution specialist. So it was literally sitting between engineers and account managers who we are supporting some of the biggest advertisers and publishers we had at Google back in the days. So that, and what that did was that leverage all my technical abilities and experiences that I built over the years to do that.
Okay, I didn't know you came in and you kind of before you working on DoubleClick for publishers and that sort of side of the business for Google, right?
That was even before DoubleClick.
Before the DoubleClick acquisition, so this is pre 2008, obviously, and
This was in 2000
and what was the main Google product? Obviously, Google Search. Was there any other products that you were working on at that point in time?
Yeah, so at the time it was Google AdWords,
Okay, AdWords,
and also
yeah.
AdSense.
Nice.
So AdWords was the advertiser-facing part of Google, and then you had AdSense, which was the publisher.
I never knew you had exposure to the advertising side of the business, actually.
So I was in advertising.
Okay, brilliant. And so during your time at Google, like, how did you progress in terms of like finding other opportunities and navigating your way to education?
Good question. So I think as a very young person at the time, I enjoyed so much the technical work I was doing. It was always like a eureka moment when you are trying to troubleshoot an issue and suddenly you find a solution for an issue that very big advertiser that is spending a lot of money with Google is having. So I quite enjoyed it. But also because that was the early days of Google. Google did not have any office in Africa back then. And I remember I usually try to get people like from Nigeria to come work for Google. And a lot of the young people at that time struggled with the interviews, especially to software engineering interviews. So I knew there was a gap. There was a gap because I studied computer science and these people were trying to get in. And a lot of the interviews had so much about algorithms and data structures. And I didn't even do algorithm and data structures when I was studying computer science back home in Nigeria. So with that passion and that purpose, I really wanted to change the way computing is taught or was taught back in Nigeria and the rest of Africa. So when that opportunity came, Google was doing a lot of visibility study to go to Africa. There were only very few of us back then who were also from Africa. So I started contributing 10% of my time to do projects in Africa. And eventually we opened the first office in Kenya, I believe. And then now you have a lot more offices. So I saw that opportunity to actually lead the education work, which at the time was focused on building the ecosystem.
Yeah.
How can we think about empowering young people across Africa who could be developers of the future? Actually now, many of them are not software engineers. Some of them are running their own startups. Some of them are working in other big companies. Some of them are back home supporting the broader ecosystem. So I seized that opportunity. I was curious and then took on that role. And so that's the transition from my more technical role to education work.
I love that career journey. A lot of people kind of, think about how they can align their passions whilst in corporate still. And I think like that example that you provided is really, really good in terms of, spotting that opportunity, one thing, but then aligning it to your actual, your passions and solving for that problem, right, for bringing the next generation into corporate environments. And one thing I associate you with as well is that global market exposure across different markets. And I know you've had a lot of exposure to that in terms of the role you do with Google and Deepmind as well. Can you speak to a bit of like how you've come to expose yourself to all those different global markets, and what advice would you give to someone also that wants to assume a similar position?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. So when I transitioned to education work, of course, at the time, my mind was focused on Africa, as a market, and given that I'm from Africa. But over time, I also saw the programs I was developing to empower students. I saw similar challenges that students in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, in the Middle East had the same challenges, and even in the UK here. So the programs I built at Google then started expanding out of Africa to Latin America, to Southeast Asia, to basically across emerging markets. So that's how my leadership influence also expanded beyond Africa. So I started leading out some of our education work for students across emerging markets. And that's also affected my career trajectory, actually, in terms of the scope and complexity of my work and the influence I had both internally and externally at Google. Um,
Okay. And what's so kind of like summarizing and kind of like thinking about the future, like what's the next area that, some of these maybe people that come into the industry right now should be looking out for in terms of in relation to maybe what Deepmind are building or just more broadly in terms of the tech sector, what should they be looking out
I
for?
haven't actually talked about Deepmind. So the other pivotal moment in my career was 5 years ago.
Okay.
I really became curious about AI. I started reading a lot about AI, and the more I read about AI, the more I could imagine the transformational impact
Yeah.
AI could have on our day-to-day lives and how this technology could improve the lives of billions of people all over the world. So that was another
moment,
enablement. So I joined Deepmind at the time now Google Deepmind to start their education work. And the work I do now is focused on if you think about AI, the hope I have for AI is this technology is just such a transformational tool that can advance challenges, some of the hardest challenges we face in science and engineering across whether healthcare or climate change or environment, sustainability, education. Just yesterday, Demi Sasabis, or Sir Demi Sasabis, the CEO and co-founder of Deepmind, and another colleague at Deepmind was awarded the Nobel Laureate Prize for chemistry for their work in developing AlphaFold. AlphaFold is an AI system that predicts the 3D structure of proteins.
Okay.
Proteins are considered as the building block of life. If you can predict the structure of the protein, you can basically unlock so many opportunities around drug discovery and so many other things. So that's one proof point of what AI could do in society. Now, over 2 million researchers across nearly every country in the world are using AlphaFold for new discoveries, and that's phenomenal. So that's what motivated me to move to Deepmind. And then
Another passion, another
the passion,
motivation,
the
right?
purpose, the curiosity. So my work at Deepmind now is focused on 3 areas. So one is around building I spend a lot of my time, I consider myself as being very, very fortunate and privileged to be spending time thinking about who the next generation of AI scientists and researchers would be and how to ensure that they are representative of society, including people like you and I. So we run a number of, we partner with universities, some of the top universities in AI, to run scholarship and mentoring programs to support people from underrepresented groups to go all the way, if possible, to go from undergraduate to master's to PhD and even postdoc and become leaders in AI. We also work on the AI literacy level, which is empowering teachers to know enough about AI to actually then teach their students what this technology is and how they can play a role in not just using it responsibly, but actually contributing to building it in the future.
Brilliant.
And then the last part I spend a lot of my time on is in AI in education. So how can we use this transformational technology to actually power learning? If you think about how we all grew up, how we all went to school, we went to school in this system that is like a one size fits all, where the assumption is that everybody learns in the same way, but we know that everybody learns in different ways. So AI has that transformational impact to personalize learning and make learning much more engaging, much more active, and much more personal. So we have, a few months ago, we launched this thing in partnership with Google called LearnLM. And LearnLM is a fine-tuned version of Gemini model that is specifically for education. So AI talent pipeline development, AI literacy, and then AI in education.
Because you're focused on the area of education, I think a big lot of comments that will come in would be speaking about the future, right? The future, including podcast, leans on the positive aspects of technology and the future of AI. Like, what areas do you feel that future technologists should be focusing on right now to ensure that they have a stake in the ground in terms of future careers and areas that they can focus on?
I think there are so many. So the journey that we've seen in AI is you've gone from research, foundational research. Now you have the foundational model, which is the output from that research. You then have, in the next phase, is going to focus a lot on application. And what comes with application is the AlphaFold example I mentioned is beyond positive impact. But you're going to start seeing vertical applications of AI, right? How you identify across sectors what specific use cases that you can use AI to solve to make people's job much more efficient and help them make better decisions. There is also need for rapid upskilling, right? So how do we actually prepare the workforce to be ready to consume this AI to contribute to building it? So there is, I think, we are going to see a lot of increase from private sector, from government on upskilling and better preparing the workforce for the future of work. And we are going to continue to see some of these research, scientific breakthroughs around climate mitigation, around economic empowerment, around sustainability, and also healthcare. I think those are going to be on the rise. And I've already talked about education. Yeah.
Obum, we thank you for all the information that you're sharing on this podcast. Lots of notes to be taken by the audience, and we're going to include links to a lot of these resources that you've mentioned. Thanks for coming on, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers.